Hello, this is Yuri with Moving Sales Professionals and Let's Talk Moving podcast. And with me today, I have Max Luckus with A. Luckus Son and Son Removals in UK. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good, good, good. Happy to have you. So, Max, how did you get started in the removals industry?
I was born into it. So when I was younger, my parents already had the moving business, and I pretty much did everything I could not to be part of the moving business because I said I was going to do better and do something different, and I thought the world was easy. Worked that out quite quickly. It wasn't the case. And when I was about 16, I did some warehousing for mum and dad because we were in like a World War II aircraft hangar at the time with
Oh,
our
wow.
storage. So I did that. Then I went off and did something else. Did some like personal training and things, and realized that wasn't any good either. And then came back and ate some humble pie and did years and years on the vans, and then eventually started running it.
Okay, okay. That's great. And what are you doing or what are you planning to do differently than your parents running the show or other companies in the industry?
I think the difference between like the way that we started and the way that we're going versus other people is mum and dad sort of had no idea, like a lot of people when they start what they were doing, and slowly built up a reputation and figured out how to provide like a good level of service and grew the company because we eventually grew to having at one point we had two 18-ton lorries, two 7.5-ton lorries, and we had two Luton vans.
So
And
for you guys in US, where I am, of course, you're talking equivalent of a 53-foot truck and trailer, so to speak, the lorries.
yeah, so we had the big trucks and the little vans. And what we discovered as it grew, or mum and dad discovered as it grew, is that for us anyway in the UK, it was better to have like a smaller team and focus on doing quality work because as we got bigger as a company, it's harder to find good staff. Good staff in this industry is really hard to come by. So
Absolutely.
we've got like a really small core team now of a few people. We've got the 118-ton lorry with the like the special we've got side loading doors and the smaller vans. And now we just do like 1 to 2 moves a day, but we do them really well. And the staff that we've got, one of them's been with us for like 25 years, one of them's with us for 20 years, and we've just had a new guy start with us. Hopefully he'll be with us for another 20 years, but who knows?
And now for a word from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com today to learn more. That's awesome. That's awesome. So now, other than that, what do you do different than your competition?
Yeah, so I think what we do differently is the care we take and the advice that we give. Because I feel like a lot of people, when they go and survey the properties, because that's what I do, obviously, go out and survey everything, is people go in, rush around, supply a quote, job done, next. Where we go in and like this morning, where in the UK it's quite a long drawn out process of like buying and selling houses. I'm not quite sure how you guys do it over there, but we obviously exchange and then we wait for the completion day. And I walk into a customer's house this morning and they go, we've been advised by our solicitor that we're going to be exchanging and completing on the same day. And she'd had 3 or 4 different people come and quote her and talk to them about the same thing. And they're like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. And I turned up and like, don't do that because if you actually have an exchange in the UK, everything can fall apart, which I think that's a sort of a poor level of customer service if you know that could happen and you're going to take
Right.
someone's money and might fall apart and have to load their stuff back into their house.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta definitely have a contingency plan regarding what do you do if things don't happen the way that you want. So you definitely want to make sure you have a day or two. I mean, in US, it's the same thing. It can be a drawn out process. I mean, I've had clients that I've talked to from the first time that I talked to them to the day of the move, and they were only supposed to move, let's say, 2, 3 months out at the time of our conversation, and the move didn't happen until a year later. So things
Yeah.
like that can happen. Closings can fall apart. A lot of things can happen. The inspection can go airy. There's a lot of different things that can happen. So yeah, absolutely. If you make suggestions and frankly, providing the level of care can make a difference between you and your competition also.
Yeah, and I think also like weight is a big problem in England, like with overloading vehicles. Like so many companies that I know locally and nationally just don't take care with like overloading vehicles, and they get pulled over by the side of the road and the customer has to wait for the stuff and they got to get another truck to come. So with us as well, like I would prefer to put like another truck or another van on the job and make
Hmm.
sure everything gets there safely. We're running
Hmm.
legally, everything's insured because insurance is the biggest thing in the moving industry, as you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
And insurance, if you need it and you want it to pay out, you've got to make sure everything is like tip top.
Does your company need more creative marketing and ad campaigns to improve traffic and organic leads? Well, Moving Sales Professionals has a solution for you. We have partnered with social media marketing agency that has over 300 million views on their ads and videos across social media, and they have generated over $35 million for their clients over the last 10 years alone. Their services include content creation, social media ads, pay-per-click campaigns, website and funnel development, Google Ads, email marketing campaigns, lead generation, and much, much more. For limited time only, they have discounted rates for their services. Sign up for a free consultation call with us via our Calendly link on our website or below this video. So let me ask you this, because you brought that up, and I'm curious. So in US, we got a whole system basically of scales, weight stations that the way the truck make sure the truck are aligned and stuff like that, which you're talking about. Is that similar to UK? You also have the scales, or is it basically somebody that's just an inspector that's riding around or sitting somewhere and just pulling these trucks over and making them go somewhere where the weight can be determined? Or how do you go about that?
So like I guess on our motorways or highways, I guess for you guys,
Hmm.
they have like stations.
Hmm.
So we've got these people called VOSA and the DVSA, like Driver Standard Agency,
Hmm.
and they randomly pull over like Arctic trucks, weigh them, make sure that they're the right weight, uh, or if they're safe, and they do like inspections on the tires and all sorts of stuff, and also driving hours like with the tacho.
Hmm.
Um, and if obviously it's not safe, they'll pull you off the road and they'll just clamp your vehicle and you can't move it. Or if you're overweight,
Okay.
they'll also clamp it, and until you get someone to come and load you, they'll also
So it's
hold you.
very similar to US. So that's yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happens here too. You can get pulled over, you can get put out of service, and all that other stuff. Exactly, yeah. So, but would that be something that would specifically apply to lorries, or does that apply to regular vans as well?
I think the worst thing is like a lot of the European curtain side, like Luton vans,
Hmm.
they come over massively overloaded and they're stopped all the time overloaded because they can only carry what, like 800 kilos, something like that. And
Uh-huh.
they're carrying like 3 tons. They're pulled over.
Oh wow. Yeah, that is crazy. But yeah, I mean, no, that's similar. So that's interesting to hear that you guys have that because, like, for example, I mean, U.S. moving industry in general is very heavily regulated. I know you guys don't like you have different levels of insurance or licensing that you have to carry in UK. I don't know if it's and you can refresh me on that because I had that conversation with one of your uh, fellows on that subject before. But like, there's different types of insurances for UK, right? And different types of levels between somebody that's just basically running around with one truck and doing side jobs or side moves, and somebody that's more serious, right?
Yeah, I mean it's all kind of the same. It's all goods in transit insurance, but like for us, we've got like £100,000 worth of cover, like as standard, because obviously everything's more expensive nowadays, and people's household possessions have gone up in value of what they buy. But also like with our insurance here, it's like as far as I'm aware, with any insurance I've ever taken out, it's like if you've got used goods, obviously all the stuff in the house is used, you're only getting the used value back, so not like for new. So I think that's kind of hard for the customers to get their head around because some customers I go see, they think, well, I bought this table for £1,000.
Mhm.
Why is it not insured for £1,000?
Right. So that's very similar here too. So here I have these conversations with people all the time when they ask us, what we call it here would be they call full valuation insurance. But of course, when somebody asks me about that, I'm always make it very clear because with full valuation, you got basically you generally have a deductible, whether that's 250 or $500 or whatever, and then the cost of the insurance itself. And then, of course, if something gets damaged, you don't get the value of what it was worth when you bought it 5 years ago. You get it potentially what it's worth today in condition that it's in today. So if
Yeah,
you have a TV that you bought 10 years ago and it was $5,000, today that TV, you're lucky if it's worth $500. Not to, and then the condition that it's in maybe has some outside scratches, whatever. So now it's down to 250 maybe,
yeah,
so it's like things like that. I have to explain that to customers all the time because when they start asking you about insurance, you're like, yeah, it's valuation, but there's this, and this condition, and it has to be packed by the mover.
yeah. And it's got to be packed by the mover. But I think the biggest problem in like today's day and age is everybody's got a flat screen TV. They're
Mhm.
all getting thinner. Everybody's got an iPad. Everybody's got everything that's like everything you touch these days is technology is like £1,000.
Mhm.
And the problem is, and it was explained really well to me by our broker that says the problem with technology, as soon as you've bought it, there's
It
already something
devalues.
coming out. Yeah, there's already something coming out though that like they're already developing something that's newer and better.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you buy something, if the TV is £1,000, well, by the time you've taken it home, it's only worth 500 in the eyes of the insurance. By the
Mhm.
time it's 6 months old, it's 250, and then
Mhm.
when it's like over a year old, they don't see it as almost any value, which is it's hard to explain that to a customer that's got a £2,000 TV that's worth £300 in insurance size.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's like if they're actually listening, then they understand it, and it sounds like you know what you're talking about. I think it's the level of conviction when you explain it. Because if it sounds
Yeah.
like you're flaking and you don't really know what you're talking about, that's one thing. If you sound like you really do know what you're talking about, they're going to be more likely to actually pay attention to what you're saying and understand that that's the way the world works. It's not just them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just hard, because I think especially in the UK at the moment, nobody has any sort of money. We're sort of getting drained left, right, and centre with all different sorts of things hitting people. So I think people want to know they've got a higher level insurance than they probably do.
Right. Well, that's what people always want to do. And then of course, if they have our problem, one of the problems here, and I'm sure that's probably the same thing with UK, is that we got a lot of people that buy cheap furniture, like that's IKEA, for
Yes.
example, that's pressed wood, and none of the movers in US, generally speaking, cover pressed wood furniture because it's one-time assembly pieces. They're not designed to be moved, and that's what we have that explanation all the time when they come back to you, and you can clearly see from the pictures of the damage that is pressed wood.
Yeah, and I think also is like being transparent with customers as well, because like with insurance claims and all sorts of things, not that we have those very often at all, but I mean moving stuff, especially I guess in the US, is inherently risky because you're moving things thousands of miles potentially, and all the trucks jiggle around a little bit, even if you
Mhm.
pack it really well, there's
Right.
always risk. But it's one of those things where sometimes when we're moving stuff, we say to a customer when we get to the new house, we go, that's not going to go upstairs. They went, yes, it will. Okay, okay. It definitely won't go upstairs. So with us here, we've got like a damage waiver. So we'll say, we will try and put it upstairs for you. But if it damages your walls, if it damages the item or anything like that, the
Hmm.
customer's liable. So I don't know if you guys have anything like that.
Yep. Yep, like I said, there's that some people tend to think that, but there's really not that much of a difference between removals and moving, and there's really not that much of a difference between removal customers and moving customers. The industries inherently are the same.
Yeah.
Maybe we price it differently, but that's really about it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, to be fair, the only thing that I wish the industry had more of was personally, as someone who got brought up around removals, I wish it had stronger regulation because I personally feel like removals is a skilled trade. I don't think you could get someone because I've spoken to people before. They think, oh, well, I'm a strong guy, I can do removals, and then you get them on removals, and they realize one, it's really hard. Two, it takes a lot of brain power to figure out how to get some stuff, especially in England, through doorways because it just doesn't fit. Um, and also that it's just they're long days sometimes, and it's tiring.
No, no, absolutely. That's the same thing. That's 100% the belief that we hold here. I mean, obviously, I talk to a lot of moving companies that have been in the industry for a long time, and that's the feeling across the board as well, is that, it is a trade. It is definitely a skill trade, and it's not something that's why we like, frankly, I talk about on this show, on this podcast, I talk about that a lot, about the fact that we want bad players out of the industry because they make those of us that are actually trying to do a good job and trying to take care of the customer, they make us look bad, and frankly, they affect our business. And of course, in US, and I'm sure it's the same in UK, any guy that has a pickup truck or a truck that they can rent, they think that they're going to go be a mover, and they're undercutting companies that have to pay for insurances, for licenses, for training, for whatever else the government throws in terms of regulations, which causes, of course, the companies to charge what they charge, because at the end of the day, we all need to make a living.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the problems because I mean, I like anybody that wants to get into the industry, everybody's got to start somewhere. If that's renting a truck and getting in the industry that way to build up some money and then doing it the right way, like I'm all for it. It's a hard industry, but the important thing is to still not undercut yourself because I'm going to see people at the moment where they're like, well, it's £500 for a move. Well, I personally, me, can't get out of. And there's no point me putting the guys in the vans or the trucks for less than like say £1,200 because I've got the insurance, I've got office staff, I've got a warehouse, and obviously all that comes into my running costs.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it seems maybe like a lot of money for like a
Mm-hmm.
small move,
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I'll be making a loss.
I mean, there's a way to do small moves, and I honestly believe that. But in order to do small moves, you basically need to set up one truck a week, one day a week, one truck, where you're going to go, and that truck is going to work all day, work 8 hours, and have five of these small moves, for example. Where on average, if each one of those moves brings you, I don't know, $200, $300, if we're talking US equivalent, right? Where at the end of the day, if that truck does five of those jobs, and they're little jobs where you're moving one or two items, right? Where at the end of the day, that truck brings in $1,000, $1,200, for example. Then it makes sense. Any other way, it doesn't. And when you
Yeah,
schedule jobs like this, you basically tell the customer, we're gonna call you day before. We're gonna give you a rough estimate of when we're gonna be there. We're gonna call you on with exact time, at least an hour or two before on the day of. And we're going to communicate with you throughout the day, and that's the only way we're able to do it at this price.
yeah. I think the biggest problem again is like people in the UK aren't very fluid. Like people want a price, people want to have exclusive use of you. And like I had a gentleman call me up today, and he had a small move, and it was going to a storage facility. And because like I said, I've got a core team. We go out and we have to do a certain volume to make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But to be fair, it depends because when it comes into storage, obviously we always try and be competitive because generally speaking, obviously with our storage facility, we make the money on the storage, not on the move. But I mean, with the way the industry is at the moment, I mean, to be fair, you said you spoke to Warren a lot. I've seen him on here like for two podcasts, I believe.
Right.
I think he's trying to change the industry with his like moving software. I think there's a couple of regulatory bodies like BAR, which
Mm-hmm.
is the head of everything,
Right.
which I wish they had more authority, but they don't. You've got like Move Assured, who again is another authorizing body, and then you've got AIM. So
Right.
you've got like these three staple people in the UK. I think there's another one like the Moving Group, I think,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got all these different people with their own ideas of how the industry should run.
Right.
I think it would be good if the government actually kind of took notice and went, "This is how we're going to regulate. This is the regulating body. Everybody's got to, be set to these standards, and this
Right.
is, you know,
Yeah,
what the
because
approved
when you
roofer
got
is.
three competing organizations and each one says this is what it should be or this is what it should be, it's either that or the three of them need to sit down and figure out one thing that's going to be uniform across the industry.
Yeah,
So,
for
because
sure.
otherwise it creates too much confusion, first of all, and second of all, you want to, like, for example, one of the like we have several things in US that are useful to us as salespeople, right? So as a call center, we use a couple of things to our advantage. We can check out and see, we have a specific site that everybody here knows, Safer Web, which is the short version of a Department of Transportation website where you can look up a company and see if they're licensed to operate, if they're not licensed to operate, if they're licensed to operate cross state lines, long distance moves, if they're licensed to operate locally, and you can check all that stuff, whether they should be crossing state lines or not, right? And we can tell a potential customer of a company that we're calling on behalf of whether the quote that they got from somebody else is legit based on their licensing or if they should run away screaming from that place and come to us, right? That's one place. Then the other place, there's basically an independent body, which is the Better Business Bureau. It's, a party that that people can put reviews, they can put all sorts of things that can be checked out and see if the companies doing things, what their reviews are like, what their ratings are like, are they treating their customers fairly and what have you, right? So to have something similar to that in UK, of course, would help UK clients because well, first of all, people that are moving going to be able to check it out and say, okay, is the company that I'm talking to legit? Are they taking care of the customers? Are they price gouging or are they fair or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem again with the UK, this is the literally the biggest problem is with pricing because what happens is a really hard industry. Summer comes, all the prices start to ramp up in the summer because everybody's like, right, we need to make profit now
Right.
because in the winter it's going to be dead. And then what happens you just watch it one by one, like the reputable companies, it'd be like, oh, they'll just drop their price and they'll just drop their price and they'll just drop their price because they're all trying to compete for work, even in the busy periods.
Right.
And you run yourself into the ground and you get to the end of the summer and you haven't made any money. And I don't really feel like there should be such a big fluctuation. I feel like if everybody sort of had a standard to work to, because sometimes I go to places and the price is up here. And then other times I go to the same place, compete with the same people, and their price is down here. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Well, I think that it's kind of the same thing that we try to do here with sales. We all like while all that we don't really push the price. That's not the important thing to us.
Yeah.
You always want to sell the value of your service. Because at the end of the day, I understand that your competitors may be dropping things. So the question is, I mean, I think you really need to talk to, yeah, it's kind of something that you want to identify early on the call with the customer. That's how your industry is fluctuating in UK, right? You want, like, one of the first things I think you want to ask when you're talking to a live person that's looking for the services, what's more important to you, the price or the quality?
Yeah.
And if the question is if the answer is the price, then you do what you can do. If the question is quality, then that's a different question, and obviously they're willing to pay for quality if that's their answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for me personally because I don't, it's not about sort of like price. This is the price for this quality,
Right,
and I won't do that. And that's what I do. If I have got to go out and it's about price, I usually won't do the job purely on the basis that if I
right,
can't staff it right and it's my reputation on the line,
right.
then I just won't do it. Let somebody else do it.
But that's what's that's what you generally want to hear, and frankly, that's the kind of clients that I want to work with because I want clients to care about their quality and about their brand. Because otherwise, what you're doing is, yeah, business is business, and of course, you want to keep your guys employed, but at the same time, it's I mean, it's a balancing act because you want to keep your quality up. Because
Yeah.
if your quality goes down, then what good are you?
Yeah, and I think like our reviews speak volumes. I mean, just this week we've been nominated. We were nominated a while ago, but we just won an award for being the best removals and storage provider in Wiltshire, which is quite a large area where we are. Just because we do things right. It's hard to do things right. It's a pain to do things right. It's tiring to do things right because you're jumping through these hoops consistently day after day, checking yourself, paperwork, making sure, even like making sure your guys are happy, because it is a hard thing because we only
It
work
is.
Monday to Friday. We don't do weekends. And people go, why don't you do weekends? Because we work really hard 5 days a week and the weekends are for my guys.
Yeah. No, I
And
understand. And that's the like in US, there aren't too many companies that take weekends off, to be honest with you. You have companies that sometimes take Sunday or some companies that take a Saturday, depending on what their religious preferences or what have you, right? But yeah, most companies work weekends because frankly, that's when people want to move. And that you
yeah,
can't you gotta go with where the money is. And if that's plus you can charge more for weekends generally, and that's what the majority of companies do anyway. So
yeah. I mean, in England, I think it's a bit different because all the solicitors and all that, the sales and stuff don't happen on weekends.
mhm,
So generally Monday to Fridays when everybody moves. I mean, if it's a weekend, it's usually like a rental or maybe somebody's coming into storage.
right.
If it's like really desperate, that's fine. But I think another like a problem with the industry, which I think maybe you've got some of this in America, like there's some companies where if you typed in removal services into Google, they'd pop up. And these companies, which I won't mention the name of, would
Mhm,
be great if you needed to like pick up a single item, get a
right,
sofa delivered, get it
right,
picked up. But they also offer moving services, and they turn up to your house. You think you've paid for a moving service. They turn up in a small vehicle.
right.
They won't take everything, and all of a sudden, it's an extra 50% on top to bring a different vehicle.
Oh, of course. We have to deal with that type of competition, except that they some of them are actual moving companies, but that's just how they do things. I mean,
Yeah,
I personally try to stay away from companies like that as a matter of policy, but that's me. Like not everybody does that, but that's where we are. Now, Max, what would you recommend to a new company starting out?
funnily enough, I've got a gentleman who has been coming down and doing some work for me who's been in the moving industry for 20 years. He's just started up his own removals company away from the person he's working from originally. And I said the first thing he should be focusing on is getting his own vehicles because at the moment he's renting vehicles. And although that is obviously one way to do it, there's nothing better than having obviously your own vehicles, your own sign writing, and obviously your own uniform. Obviously, he's got that. Image is really important because for me, like all my lorry is immaculately sign written. It's like it's serious, but it's also a bit fun. We've got some balloons on the front. We've got like the packing boxes on the side with like the packing peanuts like falling out of it. It's because removals is a bit boring. It's about standing out, but also being professional.
Right. And that's absolutely the case with US too. Like I said, there's too many parallels between the two countries as far as these two industries go, moving and removals. So, but of course we can talk about this for hours, and there's a
Yes.
lot of subjects to connect on, which is great at the same time. So I'm sure it's great for a lot of people to hear to see that there's actually that we have so much in common, and that's awesome. And once again, thanks for joining us, Max. And like I always say, the world moves on its own, so let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will talk to everybody soon.